Now we have another problem that arises for the institution of Rome. They say that Peter was in Rome for approximately 25 years. They claim he was Bishop of Rome from 42 to 67 AD. Now there's not one shred of evidence that substantiates that claim. In Rome they have all kinds of Peter relics everywhere. They've got the chains hanging up that Peter was supposedly bound with. They have an altar where his head supposedly lies underneath. They are supposed to have the bones of Peter, and goodness knows what other parts of Peter they might have dangling around. Peter may not have been in Rome almost 2,000 years ago, but he sure is now. He's scattered all over it. But there is a little bit of a dilemma that arises. Saul, later to be called Paul, saw a light on the road to Damascus, and he got saved in the year 39 AD. 3 years later he went on a visit to Jerusalem in 42 AD. Now according to Roman Catholic teachings, Peter is in Rome presiding as bishop. Well, there's a bit of a problem, because when Paul got to Jerusalem, Peter was there along with the rest of the early church. If we read on in the story in the book of Acts chapter 9, you will find that Peter is ministering in Joppa, where he healed Dorcas and raised her from the dead. He is down in Caesarea converting and baptizing the household of Cornelius. And in 43 AD, and according to Acts chapter 11 and verse 2, Peter is back in Jerusalem. He's not only back in Jerusalem, he's in prison, and an angel has to go by night to get him out. While all this is going on, Peter the Pope is supposed to be in Rome. You see the problem that we're having here. Someone has made a mistake, and that is why we do not listen to these Roman doctrines. This is why they have to curse everyone under pain of death, because it does not take a rocket scientist to see that their fables don't add up. Don't question it, or we'll kill you. In the year 56 AD, which is 14 years later, that is where the dispute in Galatians 2 took place. Understand, he's still in Jerusalem, and he is going to visit Antioch, which is in modern-day Turkey or Syria. He was nowhere near Rome or Italy. Paul wrote a letter which we call the Epistle to the Christians in Rome. He sends greetings to 27 people in the early Christian church. These were prominent people in the local assembly of God, and not one of them is called Peter. If Peter was Bishop of Rome, and he had been there all those years, it must have been downright ignorance on Paul's part to write a letter and name all those other people and leave Peter off the list. A Catholic apologist actually suggested that Peter may have been on vacation. How Paul would have known that without telephones or text messaging is beyond me. I personally don't think there were a lot of vacations taking place with so much work to be done. That is just grasping at straws. So Paul tells us why he's coming to Rome. I might have a prosperous journey by the will of God to come unto you, for I long to see you, that I might impart unto you some spiritual gifts, to the end ye may be established. He says that he longs to see them. He wants to give them a spiritual gift so their faith and church might be established. That is saying something for the supposed bishopric of Peter. Peter has been there heading the church for all those years, and Paul says, I can't wait to get to you Christians in Rome, that I might be able to impart some spiritual gifts to build you up. If Peter was in Rome, he hadn't been doing much. And one more, if we go to Romans chapter 15 and verse 20, Paul says, Yea, so have I strived to preach the gospel, not where Christ was named, lest I should build upon another man's foundation. Now this is serious and to the point. If Peter had been in Rome nearly 20 years building up the local church of God, Paul would have been going to Rome and building upon somebody else's work. It's pretty clear-cut. Paul was going to Rome because no one had laid the foundation. The teachings of the Roman Catholic Church just is not there. It's not in the book. When Paul was in Rome later on, and he was lying in a Roman prison, he wrote letters to Timothy. Paul says that everyone has fled. He says everybody else has deserted him. Only Luke is with me. That says a lot for the Bishop of Rome, or Peter the Rock. Paul's in jail, and all but Luke had left him. In verse 16, Paul had his first trial, and no man stood with him. All men forsook me. Where was Peter the Rock? Where was the infallible Pope? Well, the answer is very simple. In 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 13, the church that is at Babylon, elected together with you, saluteth you, and so doth Marcus my son. Peter tells us where he was. He tells us that he was in Babylon, which is in modern-day Iraq, and that was the scene of his ministry. Babylon is where he was writing his letters and epistles. You see, the picture doesn't fit. History and the Word of God confounds the Roman system.